The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and this week I am once again joined by our favorite guest. It's Steve Sabatke. Welcome back, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you. Jameson, I have to tell you that I had the worst nightmare about this show the other night.
How so?
I dreamt that I turned it on, and instead of you being on, it was Jeff Robbins and Bill Baker. It was horrifying.
I wish I could say it was all just a dream. But sometimes a guy's got to take some time off, you know?
It wasn't a dream? It actually happened?
It happened.
Oh,
I wasn't here to see it.
Really? Okay. Am I dreaming now?
This is real
a dream?
life.
Oh, is this real?
This is real life. It was my first week off in several years. Well earned, I think.
Okay. Well, you deserve that.
Sure.
Yes. All right. I just thought that was a nightmare.
Oh man! All right. Speaking of nightmares, we got some movies to talk about this week of varying quality as always, and I'm going to turn it over to you to start off with what we have on the marquee first this week, sir.
All right. Well, let's start with Vengeance in theaters, written and directed by BJ Novak, who also stars in the film. He's best known for his role as Ryan in the sitcom The Office, and Novak plays Ben Manolowitz. He's a pretentious, narcissistic hipster writer for New Yorker magazine who can't remember the names of all the women that he dates, and he likes to answer with the phrase 100% when he agrees with you in a conversation. And one night he gets a call from a stranger in Texas named Ty, played by Boyd Holbrook, who tells him that Ty's sister, Abilene, died from an opioid overdose. And he pushes Ben to come to Texas for the funeral because even though this was a girl that Ben casually hooked up with, the girl's family thinks that the relationship between the two is much, much more serious, not a new plot device. So once Ben's in Texas, Ty tells him that he thinks his sister was murdered, possibly by a drug cartel, and he wants Ben to team up with him to investigate the circumstances behind Abilene's death. Now, Ben, he's always looking for a way to get his name out there. He sees this as podcasting gold. He pitches it to a podcasting producer in New York, played by the always great Issa Rae. She's not given a lot to work with in this movie. Ben gets the green light for the podcast. He proceeds to talk to people who knew Abilene in this small, remote Texas town, including a philosophical record producer played by Ashton Kutcher. He runs a big recording studio out in the middle of nowhere. The first 2/3 of this movie is pretty much a fish out of water, red state versus blue state satire. And I was fine with that. I thought there were some genuinely funny moments in the film. There's a scene where Ben's at a rodeo and he declares his allegiance to the wrong Texas football team. I thought that was funny. So I was rolling along with it. I was enjoying it. But then it gets to the final third of the film, and it takes a very dark, serious turn into this murder mystery. All of the humor in the movie pretty much got sucked out at that point.
Yeah.
And it led to an ending, and I know, we can't talk about it, but it led to an ending. I didn't like the ending. I thought it was completely implausible. I didn't believe it for a minute, and it took away from my enjoyment of the film.
The ending felt out of place. It felt unearned to me.
Yeah.
In how it turned. So I'm going to say, first off, I don't care for BJ Novak as an actor. And that kind of colors my vision of everything he does.
You didn't like him in The Office?
I didn't like him. He was my least favorite character in The Office.
He doesn't play, the character in this movie is not far from what he played in The Office.
He's exhausting to be around.
Yeah.
He's a terrible person in this movie. I mean, from the opening with him and John Mayer.
Oh.
As two, they're acting like they're 20-year-olds in New York cooking up. They're in their 40s. Mm-hmm. These chicks. And then he sees this dead girl as a way to exploit these people to be. And I'm going to make a true crime podcast. I'll be the first one to ever do that. And he exploits these people for personal gain, uses their tragedy to launch his podcast because, as dead white girls print money. And like you said, Issa Rae given really nothing to do but just talking to a phone
that's
for the
pretty much
majority of the movie.
Yep.
Edit this. Oh, you're doing a great job. That's all it's too bad. I liked Ashton Kutcher's character in this movie. I thought that his character, especially in the scene where they first meet at the record studio, and he kind of offers something to the narrative of the mystery that I thought was kind of interesting. I didn't like his character where they went with his character later in the movie, but I found that BJ Novak's character was really an unsympathetic fish out of water. And I did like, I liked the family. The comedy was, based on cultural differences mostly, which is, we've seen those jokes made several times.
Well, I wish there would have been more on the mother because I thought she was the most interesting out of the whole group.
And every time they gave her a moment, I was
like,
this is great. But they kind of just straight from her and went, New Yorkers do this and Southerners do this.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And I love Boyd Holbrook. And in everything he does, he's always interesting to me. The brother, I always find him to be really interesting because I don't know. It's just the way something he has about him. But
well, there's a lot of themes floating around in this movie. I mean, BJ Novak pretty much throws everything against the wall in hopes of having it stick. I mean, it's East Coast elitism and murder podcasts and social media and relationships and the divided America. I mean, he's all over the map.
I think he really could have done an interesting. I think he's a good writer for the most part, better writer than performer. Right. I think it could have been good if he just chose like skewer our cultural biases and really go after that, or how we see situations in this society as content rather than actual situations, real people, because that is a thing now, and that's kind of how media and everyone with a camera in their hand sees, this is good content for me to get likes, and just felt kind of all over the place. And then at the end, he tries to veer it into a very serious tone, and I was a little frustrated by that.
I mean, is this going to win any awards? No.
No.
Should BJ Novak make another film? I mean, I think he should. I don't know about you, but
he can write some movies.
I think it's worth him, continuing. I mean, there's some good stuff.
I'm not trying to chase him out of Hollywood.
No. I changed my score, I think, at least a dozen times in this one.
Yeah.
Because this is one where I just kind of kept thinking about it.
All right. Well, what score did you end up on for Vengeance?
I gave it 3 stars. No, that's as of right now. Who knows? I may need to revisit and see this again, and it could change.
Sure. Yeah, I ended up giving it 2 out of 5. I don't know. And that ending left a really bad taste in my mouth. It was higher until the last third where things just came off the rails. I don't know. Not a huge fan of it. But let's move on to what else we have on the marquee this week. It's a film that I went and saw. It's called DC's League of SuperPets, directed by Jared Stern and Sam Levine. This is the story of Krypto, the beloved superpowered dog of Superman, his partner in all his adventures. Krypto is voiced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But when Supes and the rest of the Justice League are captured and imprisoned by Lex Luthor, Krypto and a ragtag bunch of pet store animals have to figure out how to overcome dysfunction and doubt to save the day and stop a diabolical guinea pig who is set on world domination. That's right. The other animals come in because Superman has taken Krypto to an animal shelter to help Krypto make some friends while he and his love Lois Lane get friendly themselves. But Lex Luthor uses kryptonite to rob Superman of his powers, as he's wont to do. Meanwhile, that aforementioned guinea pig, who is a character named Lulu, voiced by Kate McKinnon, has used orange kryptonite to steal Krypto's powers and give her immense power. That same foreign rock also gives powers to the other animals in the shelter, though, so as Lulu leads an army of superpowered guinea pigs. Ace, voiced by Kevin Hart, and friends need to figure out what they can do and also encourage Krypto to be the hero that he's born to be. It's a story about, the enduring love of a dog for its master. It's got lots of, stories in here about belonging in the world. And there's some fun bits you see on here. There's a pig, PB the pig, voiced by Vanessa Bayer. Natasha Lyonne voices a turtle named Merton. There's a bunch of fun characters. You also have all the Justice League characters. Superman, voiced by John Krasinski. Batman, wonderfully voiced by Keanu Reeves. Best part of the movie. It's only for a few moments.
Does this mean we now have to include Keanu Reeves in the discussions on who's the best
Batman
is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's got fun bits, about all the various superheroes. A really fun voice cast. Visually, looks fun. The story itself is okay, but it felt like a lot of it, especially the jealousy of Krypto towards Lois, because that's kind of the initial thrust of the story is he's jealous that Superman is giving attention to Lois. It felt like it was a plot that I saw in The Secret Life of Pets, also voiced by Kevin Hart. So there was a lot of this where I feel like I've seen this movie before. I like there was lots of small homages to the Christopher Reeve Superman films, plot points and little things that my 9-year-old daughter was never going to pick up on.
Those are pretty old.
Yeah, we're giving 45-year-old plot points, little jokes. So Mark Maron, podcaster and comedian Mark Maron, voices Lex Luthor. If you listen to his podcast, he uses the phrase "lock the gates" in his intro. So of course, Lex Luthor at one point has to say "lock the gates." Okay. I'm like, oh boy, who's this movie for? And of course, the big drawing force for this is The Rock and Kevin Hart. Their fourth team up. You can't turn on anything without seeing these two.
Are they like the new Martin and Lewis? No,
I think they
understand that's an old reference.
It would have belonged in this movie.
Yeah.
No, it is very much like they just let's be in everything. Let's go on in front of anyone who has a camera. Let's go in front of together, and it goes for a lot of cheap jokes. Interesting, a lot of the jokes are at the expense of the superheroes, which I'm looking at this through the eyes of, DC has had a really hard time with their movie franchises.
They continue
really
to
hard
have
time.
a hard time.
Yes,
Yeah.
They are canceling movies that they have already made and spent money on. And so you introduce all these heroes and then you immediately make jokes about all of them and how stupid they are, and we're making jokes about how lame Aquaman is. And I'm like, I figured you'd use this as a bridge to a new audience. But no, you're like, no, it's all about the dogs. The heart, there's some heart in here with the dog stories. Ace's story, Kevin Hart's animal, has a nice heartfelt story about how he got to where he is. And it's nice to see a DC property that isn't all doom and gloom as opposed to most of the movies. But this movie reminded me a lot of Lightyear in that I felt that was kind of empty calories off of a franchise, and this felt a lot like that to me.
Did your daughter like it?
She liked it enough, but my daughter is we walk out normally, everything's 10 out of 10 for her. And this one she gave a 7 out of 10, which is a damning score for someone who gives everything 10 out of 10.
All right.
If it's less than 10, I'm going, okay, so she had issues with this movie.
Yeah.
And I felt like even, The Rock is dynamic, but I thought that he was really bland in this movie as just super serious Krypto the dog. And Krypto's the most boring character in this film, which is kind of rough. But I don't know. It was blah for me, and I ultimately end up giving the DC League of SuperPets a 2 out of 5.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the audience is in this movie.
Wow.
I know there were some other kids in the theater. They couldn't be bothered to stop playing hide and seek in the theater and watch the movie. So
that's why I go to the Late Show.
Yeah. Find something else is what I'm saying instead of DC League of SuperPets.
All right.
Let's move on to our streaming spotlight this week, sir. And you had a movie that you watched. What are we talking about?
Yeah, well, I asked Jamison if I could watch this on Paramount Plus. It's a music documentary. It's called The Day the Music Died, and it focuses on the iconic song American Pie, written and recorded by Don McLean and released in 1971. Now, if you don't know the song, Jamison will sing it for you at the end of the show.
Yeah, leave me 12 minutes at the
All
end.
8 minutes of it. The song was a massive hit. It reached #1 not only in the U.S. but also in several other countries. And it's a song that still has an impact today as shown by the film. And this documentary veers back and forth between pretty much 4 different segments. One segment's about Don McLean growing up, how he became a musician, a songwriter, and how he came up with the idea for writing the song. There's a segment about the actual day the music died. That's the day of the plane crash in February of 1959 near Clear Lake, Iowa, that claimed the lives of rock and roll legends Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. You see interviews with Clear Lake residents who remember the crash. You get to see the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, which was the last place they played before they died. And the ballroom, looks like it's still operating today. There's a segment on the impact that the song has had even to this day. You hear from Garth Brooks, Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. You see parts of a video that was done recently in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where the residents lip sync to the song in response to an article that called Grand Rapids a dying city. And then there's a segment where McLean goes over the lyrics of the song in pretty decent detail, and he refutes some of the myths that surround the lyrics.
Oh, cool.
And there's a really emotional moment in the film that kind of choked me up, where Don McLean meets for the first time the sister of Ritchie Valens, and she thanks him for keeping the memory of her brother alive. And I love documentaries. I love music documentaries, and especially documentaries that tell me something that I didn't know. And there was a lot in this film that I didn't know. Even though I'm a fan of Don McLean, I'm a fan of the song. I was completely engrossed in this from start to finish. The only issue that I really had, and it's minor, is that the movie really didn't include anything about his career after American Pie. I mean, he did have a pretty successful career. He's still performing.
Yeah.
I mean, he did have some hits afterwards. Obviously, none with the impact that American Pie had. I wish the movie would have included that story as well, but they don't. So when I first heard this song come out in 1971, and it was on AM Top 40 radio, WLS in Chicago.
Yeah.
Were you around in 71?
I was not.
You were not?
-6.
Okay. I thought it was unlike anything I'd heard before. I mean, first of all, it's an 8.5-minute long song, and to get something of that length on Top 40 radio back then, it was almost unheard of. I mean, usually it was like 3 minutes tops. But it was something very, very different. And I also remember when I was working at WBEV Radio in Beaver Dam, the only recording we had of American Pie was the 45 single.
Okay.
And so that meant that part A was on the A side,
Oh, man.
part 2 was on the B side. If you wanted to play American Pie, you had to play part 1. Then you play a 15-second spot. While the spot's playing, you flip the record
So
over.
with an 8.5-minute song on the radio, that's normally bathroom break time.
That is bathroom
But you
break
can't.
time. No. That's why I played Hey Jude. But you had to flip the record over, play part 2. It sounded awful.
Yeah.
But, it's a great song. And that's the only way we could play it. I thought when I first heard this was coming out, I was really looking forward to it. And I loved it. I just thought it's interesting.
So all 4 parts worked for you then?
Yeah, they really did.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I want to check this out. I love the song. I discovered it long after it came out. I was a kid, and you'd hear the song just going on and on. I never understood the lyrics, and then would pick up context clues. So I would love especially the section where he kind of goes through the lyrics, because a lot of, I'm sure, of what I know is urban legend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give it all away, but there's one part where he talks about the jester. I can't remember, and a lot of people thought that was Bob Dylan for some reason.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I mean, it was just simply the jester. It had really nothing to do with Bob Dylan. And he talked about, a lot of people thought the king was Elvis.
Obviously.
And it wasn't.
Huh. All right.
So, yeah, and he actually goes through it in lyric by lyric, talking about, well, here's what I was thinking when I wrote this, and
great.
It doesn't mean what you think it means.
Don't read too much into this.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Paramount Plus, The Day the Music Died, Don McLean.
All right, if you have to give this movie a score.
Well, I gave it 4.5 stars.
Yeah.
Again, I wish they would have spent a little time about his career afterwards. But again, minor. If you're a fan of the song, you need to see it. Even if you're just familiar with the song and you enjoy music documentaries, you should see it as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out, especially off that review. Excellent. Also, I believe over on Paramount Plus is where we also saw a film called Honor Society from director Oren Zegman. It's a film stars Angourie Rice as Honor Rose. Honor is a student whose sole focus is getting into Harvard at any cost. Her guidance counselor, a creep named Mr. Calvin, played by Christopher Mintz-Plasse, you might know him as McLovin. He has a crush on Honor. That's not cool. But he also has an in at Harvard to get one student a long look at admission. And he tells her that she is in his final four to recommend. Well, this is a little frustrating for her. Means that she has 3 fellow students that she has to take down in order to guarantee her spot. This launches her on a mission to undermine and derail those 3 students who match her academically. You have the cute jock, Travis, played by Armani Jackson. You have the dour but brilliant drama nerd. Oh boy, my notes ended. Kennedy, played by Amy Kuhn. And the loner nerd with no friends, Michael Dipnicki, played by Stranger Things' own Gaten Matarazzo. And Honor uses everyone, even her friends, and it's all calculated to get what she wants. In fact, she even uses the audience through a constant breaking of the fourth wall. A bit of Ferris Bueller, a bit of classic John Cusack, Mean Girls energy is what it is. And she's kind of an unreliable narrator at parts. And as she gets close to these 3 competitors, she learns more about who they really are, if only to use it against them. And, will she sympathize with any of them? Will her nefarious plan take them all down, or will it open a new world for these people? And we find that not everyone is as they seem, of course. And so as she lays out her plan to sabotage these academic competitors, as well as lure her advisor, the creepy McLovin, into doing what she needs, it's kind of a formulaic film for a lot of the movie. I'm kind of a sucker for these high school teen dramas. I grew up on John Hughes movies. This feels like an homage to many of those.
Well, yeah, it's John Hughes. It's Mean Girls. It's Election.
Yeah, yes, very much so.
But this film wears all those influences proudly on its sleeve. Mm-hmm. And I was okay with that.
Yeah.
I really was. I mean, this one kind of surprised me. And I think one of the reasons for that was the cast. Now, how do you pronounce her first name? Angourie? Angourie.
She's Australian.
Angourie Rice. She is very good in this. Yes. She's definitely a name to watch. I'm usually not a fan of talking directly to the audience, but I think it does work here. It's not real annoying. It does help to move the story along. Mm-hmm. And it is similar to, what Matthew Broderick did in Ferris Bueller. I also was kind of surprised by the performance of Gaten Matarazzo.
Yeah.
I thought when I learned that he was going to be in this, I thought, it's going to be, the nerdy Stranger Things, goofy, character.
He was an interesting character.
And it's a fairly restrained performance from him. He doesn't bring out that full Stranger Things nerdiness. Mm-hmm. And so I was pleasantly surprised by that. You mentioned Christopher Mintz-Plasse.
Yes.
I found it interesting because I found another film that this somewhat parallels with, Promising Young Woman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you got, the Carey Mulligan character who's out seeking revenge, and she encounters this sleazy character who picks her up, played by Christopher Mintz-Plasse.
That's right, he does.
And now here he is in this movie.
This is the same guy. He's just out at night going after.
He's playing the creepy guidance counselor who holds the key to Honor's obsession of getting into Harvard. So a little bit of a parallel there.
That's a nice parallel. Yeah. I enjoyed it felt like a throwback to past versions of the story, but it felt freshened up. I thought I knew where this was going to go, but it went places.
Well, I thought I did too.
Yeah, because it felt like, okay, I've seen this movie, I get it. I've seen these characters, and it didn't treat the stereotypes as stereotypes, where oftentimes the jock does this, and the nerd does this, and the drama kid does this.
Right.
And this showed that, no, they're more well-rounded than just that stereotype. And I really was caught off guard by where this film ended up as opposed to where it was halfway through.
I was too. I was surprised by the twist at the end.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna, we talked about this when we talked about, I think, senior year a few months ago.
Yes.
I'm going to raise my standard high school comedy complaint.
Okay.
They give us interesting parent characters, and we just see a little bit of them. I mean, I wanted to know more about Honor's parents.
Yes.
Yeah,
because they give them interesting, especially your dad has this quirky thing that they just kind of drop in every once in a while.
I mean, there's a great scene in the movie where the father, he's this big brute who apparently works in a fast food place or a bowling alley.
I think he works everywhere.
Yeah. He opens the door and he meets the Gaten Matarazzo character for the first time, and he just stares at him.
Never says a word.
For the longest time, and he doesn't say a word, and it's hilarious. And you got Honor's mother, she's just, imparts these little tidbits of wisdom while she's making all these different kinds of bread. And I wish we would have seen more of them in the film.
I agree.
I always have a complaint about that. You bring up these great characters who play the parents, then they just don't get a lot.
And you end with a fun musical play.
Yeah.
That's very stereotypical. We build to the performance.
Yeah.
It's either a prom or a school play. But I enjoyed that. It worked enough for me.
I mean, the film does have some edginess to it. I like that. It does have funny moments. It did catch me off guard with the twist at the end. Yeah, the film does kind of wrap up all neat and tidy, at the end. But I mean, this is the way high school films. That's what they usually do.
Absolutely.
And I was surprised. I was really surprised. I liked it. I mean,
all right. Put your score out there then for this film that you enjoyed.
I mean, 3.5 stars.
Hey,
probably not the best score, but I think it's worth seeking out.
No, that's great. I give it the same score. I was expecting it to be kind of just blah, but I found myself intrigued by it. Set my phone down. I'm watching it. And it was enjoyable. So yeah, check it out. It's over on Paramount Plus. You got a couple of movies recommended to you this week from Paramount Plus. Go check those out. Let's take a look ahead at what is coming soon. I'm looking at the weekend of August 12th. We have a few films. The first one is a film called Emily the Criminal, starring Aubrey Plaza. This is a film that I actually reviewed earlier this year, saw it at the Film Fest. So if you want to see my thoughts on that film, go back to our May 6th show. You were on that, weren't you?
I was on that, yeah.
Yeah, go back to our May 6th episode, and you can find my thoughts on it. But I did recommend it highly. So that is finally coming out now. We also have in theaters a film called Mac and Rita, about a 30-year-old writer who spends a weekend in Palm Springs and wakes up to find that she is transformed into her 70-year-old self. It's a film that stars Diane Keaton and Martin Short. Just give me those names, I'm in. I'll enjoy that. It's a big type movie.
Okay.
Freaky Friday, I don't know. We also have in theaters a film called Summering, a child adventure flick about 4 girls about to start middle school who go on a magical coming-of-age adventure. Over on Netflix, we have Day Shift, an action comedy starring Jamie Foxx, Dave Franco, and Snoop Dogg about a dad trying to provide for his child by being a secret vampire hunter. And then lastly on Paramount Plus, a film called Secret Headquarters starring Owen Wilson and Michael Pena about some kids who discover that the lair of the world's greatest superhero is underneath one of their houses. And also this week, there is a film that I talked about last week, Bodies, 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 is getting a wide release into theaters. So we will have it here at the Palace on August 12th. Speaking of the Palace, we want to thank them for sponsoring the show. We do enjoy Marcus Theaters and a Dream Lounger when we're watching our movies. So thank you again for that. Next week, I'm going to be talking about movies such as Bullet Train, Prey, the Predator prequel, a film called Carter, and maybe a film called KGF. We'll see. And I will be joined by a surprise guest. So tune in next week to find out. Mr. Sabatke, thank you again for doing this. And,
all right. Hopefully I'll have better dreams about this show.
I hope so. I hope your next dream is that you are here and you're wearing pants. As opposed to what's going on right now. Until next week, I'm Jamison.
And I'm Steve.
Thanks for watching.